Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is going to be another in my RHCE practice session videos where I am preparing for the Red Hat Certified Engineer exam. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching who has not subscribed yet to click that subscribe button and ring the bell when you do, so you can be notified of when new content is available. Also, if you enjoy the video, make sure you click like and feel free to share with others who might find the video useful. In this video, we're going to be continuing with the Understand Core Components of Ansible Objective Group, and we'll be looking at configuration files for that. I want to remind you that this is not necessarily intended to be authoritative information, nor is it intended to be a tutorial. Rather, it's an opportunity for me to do a self-assessment on whatever objective a video happens to be about. And at the end of the video, if I feel like I could explain it well or could do some examples pretty well, then I'm probably ready for tasks on the exam that are involving those objectives. Otherwise, I know between now and about 3 weeks from now, when I take my RHCE exam, I know that I need to do a bit more review on it. That being said, I do try to have the information as accurate as possible. So I'm here with my workstation, and I've already SSH'd into my Ansible control node, and I've already sudoed into, or SU'd into my Ansible user account. So getting right to it, if we have a default install of Ansible, so that's basically what we have here. You know, we enable the repository, DNF install Ansible, and we're ready to go. The global configuration for Ansible is within the etc Ansible directory, and that is ansible.cfg. So let's VI into that. All right, so we have our ansible.cfg, and it actually mentions a couple of things here as far as what parameters are overridden and such, and we'll get into that a bit more in the video. But what I want to go over are a couple of items that are in the configuration file itself that you would want to be aware of. On the exam, I can't imagine that you're going to have all of this stuff memorized, but it's good to be familiar with what can be configured in the configuration file, so that might save you a bit of time. Let's say that that your inventory is always going to be at a particular place. So rather than having to specify that every time you run an Ansible command, you know, doing -I for your inventory, you simply set that within the Ansible file. So speaking of, we see in the defaults section here that your inventory is set to etc Ansible host. Now notice how this is commented out. Almost everything in this particular configuration file is going to be commented out because this is simply showing you what your default values are. So if you were to do nothing else, Ansible is going to be looking for your inventory information within etc Ansible host. If you do nothing else, when you are using sudo, the user that you're becoming is going to be root. If you do nothing else, the number of forks or the number of, let's see, this is within managed parallelism, but for lack of a better phrase, the number of commands that are done at one time, or maybe it's the number of hosts that you're touching at one time is going to be 5. Moving on down, the way that facts are gathered, if you do nothing else, then it's going to use the implicit method for gathering facts, on and on and on. So you can uncomment these and change them to whatever you like, or you can use other configuration files that will take precedent over what's in the default. But the couple of things I did want to point out to you, I mentioned the inventory. You are going to, or you might need to configure your roles path at some point, especially if you are using roles that are within etc Ansible roles, or if you're using some of the roles that are provided by Red Hat. I can't remember off the top of my head right now where those are stored, but you will probably need to include that in your roles path when you start trying to work with that. There was another thing, looking for it here, that I wanted to bring to your attention, or so I thought there was another thing. Where are you at? It deals with privilege escalation. I thought that there was a section for it, but I might be mistaken. All right, so, oh yeah, here it is. So all of that were your defaults, and you have some stuff with inventory. This is what I was looking for. So the privilege escalation session. This is where if you wanted to not have to either use -b or specify become in your playbooks, even though I would imagine that you would want to specify that, you can simply say become equals true. You can dictate how become works. You can dictate what user that you need for become. Again, these are the default values, but if you needed to change that, you will do that within privilege escalation. So moving up, I'm going to go back to the top of this document and take a look at this paragraph here, and it talks about where you can have these configuration files. It also mentions that when you are running your Ansible playbook, let's say that in the Ansible playbook you specify a different remote user that you'll be using to connect. Whatever you have in your configuration files is going to be ignored because the playbook is like the most, I guess, closest to the actual running commands, and so that's going to take precedent over all others. And also there are some other command line flags, such as that -i for inventory. Let's say that you have your configuration file with the inventory that you typically will want in almost all situations, but let's say there's some one-off thing that you made a separate inventory file for, using the -i when you're using either Ansible for Ansible ad hoc commands or Ansible-playbook, that'll overwrite whatever you have in your inventory files. But again, the etc Ansible config is, I think of it as kind of the global. And first where it's going to look is whatever your current working directory is. So let's quit out of this, and we are in etc Ansible. Let's go back to our home directory. I'm going to make a directory here. I'm going to call it Core Components. That's the part of the objectives that we're in. And we're going to cd into Core Components. I'm going to make an inventory file, and we'll just put the lab host here. All right, so if I were to do just Ansible all m, we'll use the ping module, it's not going to work because there is nothing in the etc Ansible host file that is going to match anything other than localhost, but localhost does not match for all. And so case in point here, if I were to, or actually, let's do a better example of this. Let's specify a host. Yeah, and it can't find a host that matches the pattern. And obviously, if I were to grep for lab in etc Ansible hosts, there's nothing that comes back for that. That's the first place that it's checking. But let's say that we make a configuration file in this directory. So I'm going to call it ansible.cfg, and we're going to make our own little default section, and we're going to specify inventory. And we'll say home Ansible, I call it Core Components, and then inventory. I probably have misspelled that. No. Yeah, I realized I did misspell it. Components. All right, so now if I were to do Ansible lab rel an01 mping, this should, famous last words in IT, work. And it does, because Ansible has found a configuration file that's named ansible.cfg in your local directory. That is what it's going to use. So you might be wondering, all right, so you only specified inventory in that configuration file. How does it know anything else to do? For example, if I were to do another ad hoc command, lab rel an01, we'll create a user with this. So name equals test user1, state present. I'm going to do -b for become. How does it know what user to become? How does it know how to handle that? Because my ansible.cfg in this directory only had the inventory file. Well, that's because it's going to go back, once it has gathered the information from ansible.cfg, and if there's nothing else that's being altered there, it's going to use the defaults for that, right? Also, as far as if you have two conflicting, or no, maybe that's not what I want. Let's say that you've specified inventory right, in your local configuration file, but you specified, whatever the remote user is going to be, or maybe that's not good, but anyway, you specify another configuration in the etc Ansible CFG. Well, unless the local CFG has anything for that configuration, it'll use what's in etc Ansible CFG. Now, there is another level that we can use. So let's remove the Ansible.cfg, right? And we're going to go up a level. So we're going to go to our home directory. So this is the home directory of our user. And we are going to create a file that is .ansible.cfg. So we're basically making a hidden file. And in this, let's set our inventory. And we'll just use the same inventory file that we had before. All right, so let's go into our core components. So we're outside of that directory, and let's see if we can use the ping module. Or let's see if it will know what host to try to touch with the ping module. Lo and behold, it does. Now, we have no Ansible configuration file in this inventory, and we have nothing added to etc Ansible host, which is where the default the default location for inventory is. But since we had something in our home directory, and that particular something is the .ansible.cfg, Ansible knows where to go for inventory information. So something that I've done just on my own with my own practice of Ansible, and a couple of things that I've observed from starting to get my feet wet in the Red Hat project is, and also this is something that's mentioned in the Sander Van Vogt book, is it seems like in actual practice, you're probably not going to be changing the etc Ansible.cfg file that often. Now, if you eat, breathe, live Ansible, you work with it every day, and I'm wrong about that, by all means, sound off in the comment, because I'm really curious, what happens in truly the real world with this. But it seems like, especially if you're managing some like large fleet of servers and such, you're probably going to, within your Ansible user account, you're probably going to have some directories that are either like project specific or maybe geographic specific, some specific set of servers and such. And the things that you need to do with those servers with Ansible will probably require some differences with configuration. And so rather than trying to account for all of that in the one configuration file, each of the directories that you would be using to manage, whatever group or large group of servers, that would probably have its own configuration file. But I would say the important thing to remember is the order of precedent as far as things that you set within your playbook or at the command line, such as inventory. That's just been what we've used in this video. That's going to take precedent. After that, Ansible is going to be looking for its own configuration file, or rather, it's going to be looking for Ansible.cfg in the current directory that you're in. After that, it'll look in your home directory for a hidden file, .ansible.cfg, and then as the last resort, it'll check out the etc Ansible, or etc Ansible, then Ansible.cfg file in that directory. So I hope you found this video useful for you. If you did, make sure that you click like and feel free to share with others. I want to again thank returning subscribers for watching another video, and want to encourage you, if you're watching and haven't subscribed, to click that subscribe button and ring the bell. Also, feel free to leave comments. You can ask questions, leave critique, leave praise. It is all good, and I will respond as I have both time and ability. I might not be able to get to everything, but I'll respond to as much as I can. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you the next time.